Hello there. I am back with some Resident Evil hot takes. Today I'm going to be talking about predictions for Resident Evil 9 and where I think the story is going to go, and some gameplay and location elements that I think might actually be in the game. So let's get into it. Prediction number 1. Ethan Winters' release on the Village was an intentional bioweapons deployment. Now, I think we're going to learn this either in Village DLC or Resident Evil 9, and it's going to have a big impact on the story of 9, especially if we end up playing as Rose. I think it's going to turn out that Ethan's release on the Village was orchestrated by Umbrella, that they allowed Miranda to find him, and they basically set it up so he would be let loose and take out these incredibly dangerous figures who posed a threat on a global scale. And that leads me to my second prediction, prediction number 2. Chris was operating under Umbrella mind control in Resident Evil 8. This would neatly explain why Chris was never able to tell Ethan what was fully going on, why Chris was never acknowledging that Ethan was actually kicking ass and defeating all these immortal monsters, and he was just going like, "You're in over your head," and basically just paves over all the plot holes in Chris's behavior in Resident Evil 8. The whole thing about building a tank is still a bit weird, but I think it's a bit weird in that kind of fun, this is an 80s B-movie logic kind of way. So I don't necessarily feel like that needs to be explained, because ultimately Resident Evil is a video game, and you need to allow a video game to be a video game sometimes. But I think that these two elements, that Chris was operating under Umbrella mind control and that Ethan's release in the Village was an intentional bioweapons deployment, are going to factor hugely into Resident Evil 9. And that leads us to our next prediction, number 3. Resident Evil 9 is going to involve Chris Redfield and Rose Winters fighting against Umbrella and trying to escape from their servitude to them. If this isn't going to be the main plot of the game, I feel like that it is going to be somewhat of a twist later on. I feel like the game is going to have another main story thrust, which I'll get to next. But I think about halfway through the game, we're going to realize these things about Umbrella, or our characters are going to understand this at least, and then they're going to team up against a sort of main villain to try and, complete what they're doing already, and try and take down Umbrella once and for all. So that leads us to the actual setting and main plot of the game, which is my prediction number 4, that the game will have a Indiana Jones style horror adventure plot. And I think there's 2 potentialities for this. It's either going to be set in a jungle, where they're going to take the semi-open world from Resident Evil 8 and expand it even more and make it almost more like Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater meets Cannibal Holocaust. Obviously there's a lot of potential there for problematic elements, but I believe that they've learned from 5 and that they'll figure this one out properly. I think that could be a really interesting setting. Either that, or it's full-on going to be set in space and the game is going to be almost like Prometheus, set in some kind of ancient alien city, run by a race that are more integrated with the viruses, parasites, and molds on their planet than humans are on our planet. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, look at my previous video about Resident Evil Village, and that kind of explains how all those things are connected. And this brings me to my next prediction. Prediction number 5, that we will find out a Lovecraftian truth about the origins of all the viruses and parasites. I think the final thrust of Resident Evil 9 is they're going to discover some kind of long-dead civilization, be that in the jungle or in deep space, that is aware, has evidence of being aware of Las Plagas, of the mold, of the T-virus, or the progenitor virus, and Umbrella kind of wants to get to the source of this, and maybe they have some kind of cover story at the start that brings Chris and Rose in. Maybe Jill or someone were the first people to investigate, and they've been kind of like stranded. I wouldn't be surprised if the opening is a distress call, like in Resident Evil 7. And then Chris and Rose go, and they begin to learn. My prediction for what that Lovecraftian truth is that the viruses, the molds, and the parasites are Earth's defense system against humanity's destructive capabilities, and that they are different ways of trying to unite humanity in a way that won't destroy the planet. So, like the progenitor virus, I think, is kind of Earth's attempt. The progenitor virus and the mold is kind of Earth's attempt to bond humans with plants, so we'll be able to like live as plants and photosynthesize and stuff. I know this sounds crazy, but like if you can piece it together from the Resident Evil lore, it's relatively obvious, I think, especially since 7 and 8 have brought this more Lovecraftian element to the lore. And then I think Las Plagas were probably an earlier attempt of the Earth to kind of take people over, and people just rejected them outright, and they kind of like hid away in that place in Spain. I think that, you know, obviously I'm not the writer for Resident Evil. I should be, but you know, that I don't have this plotted out in full detail, but I think it's going to be something like that. My final prediction, number 6, is that in the end of the game, the player will become the uncontrollably mutating final boss monster. In the way that these games have been escalating their elements and the series tropes, like in Village of Shadows, you know, it was like the Baker Mansion on steroids, right? It was the Baker Mansion on bloody DMT injected methamphetamine. The tank boss fight was a, you know, supercharged version of the chainsaw fight from 7. I feel like the natural progression for the series for a climax is for, at the end of the game, your protagonist, who's probably Rose, will take on these monstrous mutations, and by the end of the game you are playing as a giant blob, as there's a countdown to a self-destruct, and you are the mutating flesh monster. And it's probably going to be very emotional. It's actually probably going to be done in a very emotional way. Now, if I was directing the game, that would be the denouement I would build to. So yeah, those are my predictions for Resident Evil 9. I don't know if any of them will be true. Considering how Resident Evil 7 and 8 have kind of followed some more fringe ideas I had about the series that I never thought would come true, I'm reasonably confident that at least 2 of these are going to turn out to be correct. But yeah, there you go. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you have your own predictions? I swear to fuck, I will actually read the comments and respond to you, because I am genuinely interested in this kind of stuff. So the music that's been playing in the background of this video is called Hollow Stepped by Crooked Light. There's a link to Crooked Light's music below in the bio. You should buy it. It's really good ambient music if you're into that sort of thing. And yeah, I think I'm going to make some more of these videos in the future. I have more esoteric hot takes about stuff, mainly movies, not so much games. And I actually have some ranking videos I want to do. I'd love to rank like post-2000 slashers and Italian horror movies. But yeah, those are my predictions for Resident Evil 9. Let's see what happens.